Chapter 392, Switching Pathways. The digestion of the pyromaniac potion progressed much faster than Lumion had expected. This quick reaction was likely due to the activation of Blood Emperor Alistair Tudor's aura without proper protection, akin to setting a blaze in Trier. The flames burned even the St. Vive Cathedral and the patriarchal cathedral of the God of Steam and Machinery Church. Hela watched the flesh and maggots, consumed by the crimson flames, for a moment before turning to Franca. Can we now discuss the clues about transmigration? Franca tersely acknowledged her words and gathered her thoughts. Seal had previously attempted a unique summoning ritual, which inadvertently brought forth a shadow suspected to be from my homeland, the one I share with Muggle. He even formed a contract with this entity. After discovering this, I had Seal summon the shadow again to communicate with it. The shadow's language is remarkably similar to that of my homeland. When asked about its origin, it said, "The blood son of heaven disrupted the netherworld, and the underworld Taoist sacrificed himself to enter the river." Franca translated the last sentence into Intijan. Hela listened attentively and then turned her gaze to Lumion. Could this be the apparition of Blood Emperor Alistair Tudor? Underworld Taoist was the one who dragged him back. That's our hypothesis, Lumion replied succinctly, indicating that Franca was also aware of the Samaritan women's spring. There was no need for excessive secrecy. Underworld Taoist, Hela murmured the term softly. Franca continued to recount her and Lumion's theories, suspecting that the illusionary river behind the spring might connect to the original world of her and the curly-haired baboons Research Society members. Hela remained silent, her dark eyes gleaming with a subtle brilliance, as though concealing a galaxy. That covers most of it. Once we've dealt with the traitors in the Research Society, I'll share this information with everyone, Franca said after a brief pause. She also reminded Hela, apart from April Fools, Loki's allies might be lurking in other teams. They tend to participate in activities without playing pranks and only reveal themselves during crucial moments. Hela nodded slightly and replied, "I'll discuss how to handle this with Gandalf and the others." The woman then turned her gaze to Lumion. "If there's nothing else, I'll take you back to the surface." Lumion withdrew his gaze from the flames and let out a deep breath. "I'll take care of this." He crouched down and placed his hands in front of Loki's lifeless body. Rumble, accompanied by a muted explosion and a slight tremor in the ground, the earth, carrying flesh, blood, and maggots, suddenly sank into the mire and rocks. Franca nodded in realization. This way, any remaining corruption on Loki's corpse wouldn't be exposed to cave adventurers who might pass by later. She assisted in carrying the corpses of the two marionettes over, contemplating whether to collect the wraith's teeth and nails. These were excellent spiritual ingredients that could be used to forge Beyonder weapons. If the wraith had lost control and transformed into a monster, Franca wouldn't feel any psychological burden dealing with his corpse. However, he still retained his human form. Considering that she didn't lack offensive weapons or poison for coating them, Franca simply harvested the powder from the translucent wraith and absorbed its residual spirituality. After removing the clothes bestowed by the evil god and checking for any clues, Franca tossed the two corpses into the blazing pit. Once she had completed this task, she turned to Hela and asked with curiosity, "Madame Hela, have you advanced to Sequence 4 and become a demigod? Otherwise, how could she have subdued Loki so effortlessly?" "Yes," Hela confirmed with a nod. Franca pondered for a moment and probed further. "You used to follow the corpse collector pathway, but this time you displayed the power of the Evernight pathway. Did you use a mystical item? Was it similar to using a sealed artifact to enable everyone to enter the nation of the Evernight in concealment and participate in the gathering?" The corpse collector pathway was also known as the Death pathway. Hela's voice was icy as she replied, "I've switched to Sequence 4 Nightwatcher of the Evernight pathway." "Why?" Franca was intrigued by Hela's choice. While she had once contemplated switching to the neighboring Hunter pathway when advancing to Sequence 4, it was mainly to restore her body to its male form. Under usual circumstances, sticking to a single pathway until the end was generally the better choice. After all, The acting acquired in the earlier sequences were deeply ingrained in that pathway, making it easier and safer to become a sequence 4 beyonder of the same pathway. Of course, if one couldn't find the sequence 4 potion formula and main ingredient for their pathway, they might consider switching to a neighboring pathway. It wouldn't necessarily lead to half madness, and they could gain a mix of unique abilities. Franca had never seen any indication from Hela of wanting to switch pathways. When they discussed and exchanged information at the Research Society, Hela primarily focused on topics related to the corpse collector domain. Most of the materials and items gathered and sold were concentrated in this pathway. Could it be that the sequence 4 potion formula, main ingredients, or corresponding rituals of the corpse collector pathway proved impractical? Franca speculated, drawing on her extensive knowledge of mysticism. Hela's pale face softened. She gazed into the darkness beyond the abandoned mine, her voice taking on a contemplative tone. If I continued along the death pathway, the deity I believe in would eventually transform me into a crucial vessel for specific moments. At this point, Hela wore a rare smile and spoke with a distant look in her eyes. It's already a challenge for her to maintain her humanity, so I shouldn't burden her any further. Franca was initially perplexed, but began to grasp Madame Hela's reasoning for switching pathways. Hela gave her a brief look and added, "If I can advance to sequence 3, I should either revert to the death pathway or switch to the warrior pathway. The upper ranks of the Evernight pathway are facing a severe resource shortage." Wow, Franca couldn't help but envision Hela wielding various sequence abilities from the Evernight, corpse collector, and warrior pathways. She found it both impressive and formidable. She, too, felt a sense of excitement about the possibility of acquiring the abilities of a demoness and a hunter in the future. Meanwhile, Lumion incinerated Loki's mutated remains and filled the pit. Hela promptly obscured the area in darkness. When Lumion and Franca regained consciousness, they found themselves outside the abandoned mine near the entrance to underground Trier on Rue Anarchy. In the distance, they could hear faint movements coming from Rue des Blouses Blanches. "Phew, this is the most dangerous situation I've encountered since becoming a Beyonder," Franca said, exhaling deeply and speaking with emotion. "If Loki hadn't used me as bait to lure you here, there's a high chance I would have become a marionette." Lumion tersely acknowledged her words and remained silent. He took a step forward and began to walk down the street. Franca followed him and asked curiously, "Did Loki say anything when he tried to disrupt your mind with his trash talk? Although many of his words may be lies, they might contain valuable information. For example, the suspicion that every member of the Curly-Haired Baboons Research Society possessed the lingering aura of the celestial worthy." Lumion remained silent for a few moments before responding. He recounted how they harmed Auror, how they repeatedly disclosed her mental state and psychiatric treatment process, and how they shamelessly mocked her. His explanation was concise, but the simplicity of his words couldn't mask the anger that rose in him again. Franca was initially surprised, but quickly grasped the gravity of the situation. "That psychiatrist, I know someone." Lumion nodded slowly. Franca contemplated the situation carefully, her anger growing with each passing thought. "Damn it, how can they be so evil? I fully support you in tearing them apart, dismembering them, skinning them, and stuffing them with grass." After several seconds of contemplation, she unleashed a curse. Lumion remained silent, seemingly weighing the feasibility of such actions. Franca glanced at him and hesitantly suggested, "When you faced the other April Fool's team members earlier, you held back and didn't kill them directly." Lumion chuckled. "Why should I kill those idiots? It's more agonizing, humiliating, and regretful for these individuals who believe they're clever when they realize how Loki and the others manipulated them. It brings me greater satisfaction than killing them. In the future, whenever anyone mentions Loki, it will be akin to insulting their intelligence to their faces, and they won't be able to escape it." Franca breathed a sigh of relief. She said to Lumion, "Rue des Blouses Blanches seems quite lively. I plan to stay at Jenna's tonight. Heh. Yes, I'll be informing my Major Arcana card holder briefly about this matter." I'll convey that if Loki isn't completely eliminated within 2 months, I would like to request a transfer out of the market district. You, too, can apply to take charge of the Iron and Blood Cross Orders branch elsewhere. I'll also write to my Major Arcana card holder, Lumion assured her, indicating that he wouldn't underestimate the potential harm Loki could cause. Lumion had always maintained a clear distinction between personal matters and official matters. Whether dealing with the Padre or investigating Loki, he had never considered seeking Madame Magician's assistance. However, this time, his use of the Blood Emperor's aura had caused quite a commotion, and it would be necessary to report it later. Seeing that Lumion remained rational, Franca felt at ease. She waved farewell and stealthily made her way toward Quartier du Jardin Botanique. Lumion averted his gaze and entered Auberge du Coq Doré, walking along the still warm street. He had no desire to encounter the official Beyonders, who might be searching for clues on Rue des Blouses Blanches at this late hour. As he pushed open the door to room 207, Lumion spotted a figure inside. It was Madame Magician, dressed in an orange waist-length dress and holding a wide-brimmed hat adorned with flowers. "Were you waiting for me?" Lumion inquired almost instinctively. Magician smiled. "What else would I be doing?" "How did you know I would come back here?" Lumion closed the door. Magician smiled and said, "This is a revelation of fate. Now tell me, why did you unleash the Blood Emperor's aura?"